The year was 1872, and the Arizona sun had no mercy left to give. The outpost at Fort Wilkes lay heavy under its glare, dust swirling, flies buzzing around blood-streaked wagons. 3 Apache women stood in the open yard, hands bound, eyes hollow. Behind them, soldiers laughed as if the world wasn't dying a slow death. Elias Boone rode in slow, hat brim shadowing a weathered face that had forgotten how to smile. 43, skin baked by wind and years of loss, he looked less like a man than a scar that never healed. He dismounted, boots crunching in the dirt, the officer waiting for him. Captain Harlow, all polished buttons and whiskey breath, grinned. "Boone," he drawled, "you've done your part. The Army appreciates your cooperation. Got you a little reward." He gestured toward the women. 3 captives from the Chiricahua band. Yours to manage as you see fit. Elias's jaw tightened. "Manage?" Harlow chuckled. "Call it what you want. The boys call them comfort women. The ones that survive, anyway." The soldiers laughed. The women didn't flinch. They'd already learned what silence cost. Elias stared at them. The eldest, maybe 30, eyes black and steady. The second, no more than 20, trembling but defiant. The third, a girl of 16 who wouldn't meet his gaze. "I don't take slaves," Elias said flatly. Harlow smirked. "Then call a charity. They'll starve otherwise. They belong to you now, Boone. Make peace with it." Elias turned away. Peace died a long time ago. By evening, he was riding home with 3 broken shadows following behind his wagon. The prairie stretched endless, miles of sagebrush and sky, the wind whispering stories of the dead. The women rode in silence, tied not by rope now but by fear. When the wagon creaked to a stop at the Boone Ranch, Elias motioned to the barn. "You can sleep there," he said quietly. "No one hurt you." They stared back, unsure whether to believe him. Cal Riggins came out from the corral, 45, thick-bearded and sour. "What in hell's that?" "Prisoners," Elias said. Cal spat. "You gone soft?" "After what their kind done to Martha and the boy." Elias didn't answer. He just walked past him, every step heavier than the last. That night, thunder muttered over the plains, and the 3 women huddled in the straw, whispering words he couldn't understand. From the house, Elias heard them. He sat by the window, watching the barn lantern flicker. He didn't know why he'd taken them. Maybe because the world had taken too much already. By dawn, the ranch woke to the uneasy rhythm of strangers. The women worked quietly, moving like ghosts, fetching water, sweeping the barn, feeding the horses, but never crossing the porch. When Elias offered them bread, they didn't touch it. He set it down anyway and walked off. The youngest, the girl, finally reached for it when he was gone. Hunger had no pride. Cal watched from the fence line, sneering. "You're feeding him now?" Elias kept his voice even. "They need food same as we do. They're killers, Boone. Every one of 'em. You think they'd spare you if tables turned." Elias met his gaze. Maybe mercy's got to start somewhere. Cal snorted and rode off toward town, muttering curses. Elias knew what that meant. Rumors would spread like wildfire. Out here, a man could get lynched for less. As the sun rose high, the women began to move with tentative rhythm. The eldest, Tassa, she called herself, stacked firewood with quiet purpose. The second, Noki, mended torn saddle straps with nimble fingers. The youngest, Childa, brushed down the horses, murmuring in Apache to calm them. Elias watched from the doorway, hat in hand. When he approached, they tensed. Tassa stood in front of the others, chin lifted, defiance in her eyes. Elias stopped a few paces short. "Ain't no law says you gotta stay," he said. "But if you run, soldiers will find you again." Tassa's reply came slow, halting. "Better die than slave." He nodded. "Maybe so," then turned and left them to the wind. That night, the prairie whispered unease. A group of riders passed on the road, drunk, laughing, their voices slurred and mean. Elias heard them shout, "Boone's got himself a harem of savages." Then laughter, fading into the dark. He gripped his rifle tight. The world had sharp ears and dull mercy. Later, When he went to check the barn, he found the women awake, eyes wide with fear. "No trouble tonight," he said softly. "You're safe here." Tasa stared at him for a long time before nodding once, but she didn't believe it yet. Neither did he. He returned to the house and sat at the table alone. The lamp flickered against the walls, shadows stretching long and lean, like the years between what he'd been and what he'd become. His wife's locket still hung from the mantel. He hadn't touched it in years. He opened it now, staring at the small sketch inside, a woman with kind eyes, a child beside her. Gone to ash in a raid 6 winters ago. Apache raiders, they'd said. He'd sworn he'd never forgive. But now 3 more stood under his roof, and he couldn't raise his hand. Maybe forgiveness wasn't the right word. Maybe it was surrender. 2 days later, trouble came riding. 3 men from town, faces he recognized, rode up the trail just as dusk bled into the plains. Their leader, Pike Danner, grinned beneath a filthy hat. "Evening, Boone," he called out. "Heard you got some company out here. Thought we'd pay our respects." Elias stood on the porch, rifle resting casual but ready. "Ain't Takin visitors tonight." Pike dismounted, boots sinking into the dust. Come on. We just want to see your new stock." The other 2 laughed. Elias's voice hardened. "They ain't stock. Turn your horses around." Pike's grin turned sour. "Don't act high and mighty. You think you're better than us? We all lost someone to their kind. You just found a softer way to bleed." Elias leveled the rifle. Last warning. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then one of Pike's men spat in the dirt. "You protectin' M. Boone? Or enjoy him?" That broke something deep inside him. "Get off my land." The rifle cocked, sharp final. The men froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then Pike muttered a curse and climbed back on his horse. "You'll regret this, Boone," he said as they turned away. "Town don't take kindly to traitors." When their silhouettes vanished, Elias's hand trembled faintly around the gun. He'd faced outlaws before, but not hatred this thick. From the barn, a flicker of movement. Tasa stepped out, watching him. Her face was unreadable. She'd seen men die before. She knew when one was ready to. "You shouldn't have come out," Elias said quietly. "You shouldn't stand alone," she answered, voice flat but steady. He almost smiled at that. "Ain't much choice out here." She looked toward the horizon, where dust still hung from the rider's trail. "They come again?" "They will," he said, "but I'll be ready." She nodded once, then disappeared back into the barn. Later that night, the wind rose, carrying the smell of sage and the ghost of rain. Elias sat by the dying fire, listening to it rattle the shutters. Every sound made him glance toward the barn, half expecting trouble. But there was none, only the muffled voices of the women, speaking softly in their tongue. He wondered what they said. Maybe prayers. Maybe curses. Maybe both. He stepped outside, lantern in hand. The barn door creaked. Inside, Tasa was awake, seated near the stall, eyes gleaming faintly in the lamplight. "You should rest," he said. She pointed to the horizon, where lightning flickered in the distance. "Storm." He nodded. "Yeah, it's coming." They stood in silence. 2 people who should have been enemies, listening to the world breathe. When the rain finally came, it came hard, beating the roof like drums. Elias turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway. "You don't owe me nothing," he said. "But while you're here, you're safe. I swear it." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened, just a shade. He walked back to the house, soaked through, feeling something stir deep in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Something close to purpose. Maybe mercy. Inside, the fire burned low. He poured a shot of whiskey and stared at the wall, where a photograph hung crooked. His wife and son, smiling before the world turned cruel. He whispered, almost to them, "I couldn't save you, but maybe I can save someone." Outside, thunder rolled like distant hooves across the plains. The rain washed the dust from the porch, from the land, from his heart, just enough for him to breathe again. In the barn, the 3 women finally slept without whispering, and for the first time since that long-ago fire, Elias Boone laid down his rifle. The desert turned brittle by mid-June. The grass crackled underfoot, and the air shimmered like glass. Elias Boone worked the fence line in silence, sweat darkening his shirt. Behind him, the women moved through the day's heat like shadows, unseen but ever present. They no longer flinched when he passed. That alone was progress. Tassa, the eldest, was steady as a metronome. She chopped with rhythmic grace, the hatchet rising and falling with quiet power. Noki, barely 20, mended the torn saddle strap she promised to fix, humming under her breath. Childa, the youngest, fed the chickens, a faint smile ghosting across her face whenever one pecked her skirt. Elias saw from the porch. These tiny mercies, this fragile peace. It unnerved him more than any silence ever had. Storms brewing, Cal muttered, tying his horse near the corral. Elias squinted toward the horizon. Ain't no clouds. Not that kind. Cal's tone carried something darker. He'd been riding into town more often, coming back with whiskey on his breath and bitterness in his words. The men in Bisbee had started talking, how Boone kept savages, how he'd gone native. In the saloon, tongues wagged louder than gunfire. That evening, Elias returned from the south pasture to find the women standing by the well, watching the sky. Tassa spoke first, her voice low. Men talk bad. We hear. Men always talk. Elias said, they come. He hesitated. Maybe. Noki looked frightened. Childa clutched her sleeve. Elias rested his hand on the rifle slung across his shoulder. If they do, they'll find me waiting. For the first time, Tassa met his eyes without fear. You know same as them. He didn't know if it was a compliment or a warning, but he nodded just the same. That night, the wind shifted. The horses grew restless, stamping and snorting. Somewhere out in the dark, a coyote howled, long and mournful, like the land itself was holding its breath. By sunrise, the air tasted like iron. Elias woke to the smell of smoke. He stumbled to the door, boots half-laced, and saw a red glow blooming near the barn. Fire! Cal! He shouted, grabbing his rifle and running. Flames licked the hay bales, climbing fast. The horses screamed inside, kicking at their stalls. The women were already there, barefoot, wild-eyed, hauling buckets from the well. Tassa barked orders in Apache. Noki and Childa obeyed, without question. Elias joined them, throwing water on the spreading flames, coughing through the smoke. The roof groaned. Sparks flew like angry stars. Get back, he yelled. But Tassa refused. She pulled at the barn door, trying to free the horses. One stall burst open, and a terrified mare bolted past her. The next stall jammed. Elias ran to help, grabbing the latch. The heat seared his arm, but he wrenched it loose. Together, they shoved the gate open. The horses thundered out, one after another, hooves pounding across the dirt. Then came the crack of a rifle. Elias spun toward the ridge. In the glow, a lone rider sat silhouetted against the fire. Cal Riggins, holding a torch. You should have stayed one of us, Boone, he shouted. Now you'll burn with them. Elias lifted his gun, but Cal turned his horse and vanished into the darkness. Get down! Elias yelled. A beam crashed where Noki had stood moments before. She screamed as a splinter caught her shoulder. Tassa pulled her clear, covering her with her own body. The barn was collapsing. Elias grabbed Childa, dragging her back. The world was fire and noise, the hiss of burning wood, the thunder hooves, the rasp of breath and smoke. Then, through the chaos, Tassa snatched the rifle from his hands, aimed high and fired. The sound cracked like justice itself. Cal's silhouette flinched on the ridge. The torch fell. He disappeared into the night. When it was over, half the barn was gone, but the house still stood. The sky rained ash. Elias leaned against the well, coughing. His arm blistered. His throat burned. Tassa approached, face streaked with soot. You hurt, she said simply. He tried to laugh, but couldn't. Ain't the first time. She tore a strip from her skirt, dipped in water, and pressed it to his arm. Fire leaves mark, she murmured. Everything does, he whispered. Behind them, Noki cried softly, holding her bandaged shoulder. Childa stroked a trembling horse, whispering in Apache. The dawn found them like that, four figures in the gray light, surrounded by ruin yet still breathing. Elias looked at the barn, smoke curling into the pale sky. "We'll rebuild," he said. Tassa nodded. "We help." It wasn't gratitude. It was a pact. Days passed in hard labor. They cleared debris, hauled timber, and patched what they could. The land smelled of char and sweat. The bond between them was no longer silence. It was survival. Elias noticed a change first in the laughter. One afternoon, he heard it, soft, real, coming from the well. Noki and Childa were teasing each other about the chickens. He hadn't heard laughter on his ranch since before the graves were dug. He let it wash over him like rain. By evening, they ate together on the porch. No words needed, just firelight, clinking tin cups, the hum of crickets. Tassa passed him a bowl of stew she'd made from the last of the smoked beef. It wasn't much, but it felt like communion. "You still plan to leave?" he asked quietly. Tassa looked toward the hills. "Where go?" "Soldiers hunt. Whites hate. Our tribe gone." He nodded. "You got reason to hate me too." She studied him a long time. "You're not the one with fire." He met her gaze. "Maybe I could have stopped it." She shook her head. "You can stop now." Something in her words, simple, direct, cut deeper than any bullet. Later, while fixing the corral, Elias found a small carving left on the fence post. A bird, wings outstretched. He knew Tassa's handiwork. On the underside, one word etched in rough English: free. That night, he dreamed of the fire again, of his wife's screams, his son's cry, the smell of smoke. But in the dream, someone else stood beside him. Not Martha, but Tassa, steady and unafraid. When he woke, he felt no guilt, only calm. 2 days later, a wagon appeared on the horizon. Elias went for his rifle, instinct tight in his gut. The wagon stopped 50 yards out. A stranger climbed down, Deputy Hanks, young and smug. "Boone," he called. "Sheriff sent me. Folks in town say you're harboring hostiles." Elias said nothing. "You know the law," Hanks continued. "Those women belong to the army. You hand 'em over peaceful. We won't burn you out like the last fella." Elias stepped forward. "Ain't no law says a man can't feed the hungry." Hanks grinned. "Ain't no law says we can't hang a sympathizer either." From behind, Tassa appeared, holding Childa's hand. Noki stood beside them, bandage still fresh on her arm. The sight of them only made Hank's smirk wider. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "Didn't think the rumors were true." Elias raised a rifle. "You best turn that wagon around." "Boone, don't do this." I said go. For a long moment, only the wind spoke. Then Hank spat in the dirt and climbed back on his wagon. "You're digging your grave, Boone," he called, snapping the reins. "Town'll see to that soon enough." As he rode away, dust swallowed him whole. Elias lowered the gun, shoulders sagging. He knew it wasn't over. That night, as the first stars came out, Tassa joined him on the porch. "He come back?" she asked. "Maybe not him, but others will. You afraid?" He thought about it. "Used to be. Not now." She nodded. "You change." "Maybe I just remember what decent looks like." For a long while, they sat in silence. The air was cool, the night alive with crickets. From the barn came Noki's soft humming, an Apache song, low and haunting. Tassa said quietly, "When I was taken, I think all men same. Now, not sure." Elias looked out over the plains. "Don't make me no saint." "No," she said, "just man who see." He almost smiled. "That's something, I guess." She rose to leave, pausing at the steps. "When fire come again, we fight together." Her words carried more promise than any oath. When she was gone, Elias stayed a long time under the stars, listening to the wind hum across the plains. He thought of all the wrongs burned into the land, and how maybe, just maybe, he was done adding to them. In the distance, lightning flickered again, silent, far away, but coming closer all the same. The weeks that followed turned quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that came before bad weather or bad men. Elias Boone felt it in his bones. Each dawn, he rode the fence line with his rifle across the saddle, eyes always scanning the horizon. The land seemed still, but he knew better. Trouble had a habit of biding its time. The women had healed as best they could. Noki's shoulder was scarred but strong. Childa's laughter came easier now, soft and unguarded. Tassa carried something in her eyes, a watchfulness that never left. She spoke little, but her presence filled every space with quiet strength. Sometimes, Elias found her standing at the edge of the pasture, staring toward the distant mountains. When he asked what she saw, she only said, "Home, but far." He nodded, because he understood what it meant to look towards something you could never reach again. One evening, as the sky went from gold to gray, he noticed riders on the far ridge, 5, maybe 6. They didn't approach, just lingered there like vultures on a fence. He watched them till the light died, and they disappeared into the dark. That night, sleep didn't come easy. He sat by the window with a shotgun across his knees, listening to the soft wind slide through the grass. Around midnight, the dogs began to bark, low, uneasy growls. Elias stood, boots on the floorboards, before he even realized he'd moved. Then came the voice outside. "Boone, open up." The tone was sharp, commanding. The army. He stepped onto the porch, the lantern light cutting through the dark. Captain Harlow sat on his horse at the gate, flanked by 4 armed soldiers. His uniform was dusty, but his smile still carried that same cold confidence. "Evening, Boone," he said. "Looks like you've been entertaining our property." Elias kept his rifle lowered, but ready. "Ain't your property, Harlow. They're free women." Harlow chuckled. "That so? Last I checked, the army paid good money to recover Apache captives. And you're hiding 3 of them right under Uncle Sam's nose. They ain't yours to take." Harlow's grin faded. "You're making this harder than it has to be." He gestured toward the barn. "Bring 'em out, or I'll come in and do it myself." The door opened behind Elias. Tassa stepped into the lantern light, Childa and Noki behind her. The youngest trembled, clinging to her sister's sleeve. Tassa's voice was calm. "We no go." Harlow's expression soured. "I wasn't a skin, sweetheart." He raised his hand. 2 soldiers dismounted, moving toward the porch. Elias cocked his rifle. "That's far enough." The soldiers froze. Harlow's eyes narrowed. "You're going to shoot a U.S. officer, Boone?" "Over 3 savages." Elias's voice was steady. "Over my word." The captain's smirk returned. "You've lost your damn mind." "Maybe," Elias said, "but I ain't lost my soul." The first shot came sudden and sharp. A soldier fired from the dark, the bullet splintering the porch post beside Elias's head. Chaos followed, shouts, gunfire, horses rearing. Elias dove for cover, returning fire. The women ran for the barn, dragging Childa between them. Tassa grabbed a pitchfork, Noki a pistol from Elias's saddlebag. Smoke and dust filled the air. Elias fired again, hitting one man square in the chest. Another tried to flank him. Elias dropped him with a shot to the leg. But there were too many. "Boone!" Harlow shouted over the gunfire. "You think you can fight the whole damn army?" Elias shouted back. "Don't need to. Just you." Harlow laughed. "Then come and try." The barn door flew open. Tassa ran out with the rifle Elias kept inside. She threw it to him. Ducking as bullets whistled past. "Use!" she shouted. He caught it, rolled, and fired, taking down a soldier aiming for her. She didn't flinch, just crouched beside him, reloading with quick, sure hands. The fight raged through the night. Short bursts of gunfire, then silence, then more shouting. When the smoke cleared for a heartbeat, Elias saw Harlow standing near the well, revolver drawn. "Enough!" Harlow bellowed. "You can't win, Boone." Elias rose from behind the trough. "Ain't about winning." They fired at the same time. Elias felt the impact like a hammer to the shoulder. He staggered back, the rifle slipping from his grip. Harlow advanced, gun raised for the kill. But before he could fire again, Tassa appeared, standing between them. Her hands trembled, but she held Noki's pistol aimed steady at the captain's chest. "Drop it," she said, her voice barely more than a breath. Harlow sneered. "You don't scare me, squaw." Elias, gasping, called out weakly, "Tassa, don't." The captain laughed. "She ain't got the guts." For a moment, the world held still. The rain began to fall, soft, cooling the fire in the air. Tassa's finger tightened. Then she stopped. Her voice cracked. No more blood. She threw the pistol down. Harlow raised his gun again, but a shot rang from behind him. Cal Reagan stood by the corral, smoke curling from his revolver. The captain's body jerked, then crumpled into the mud. Elias blinked, stunned. Cal holstered his weapon, face grim. "Couldn't stomach what I started." The last soldier dropped his gun and fled into the darkness. The fight was over. The rain came harder now, washing away the smoke, the blood, the ash. Elias sank to his knees, clutching his shoulder. Tassa knelt beside him, pressing a cloth to the wound. "You live," she said firmly, as though her voice could command it so. He gave a faint smile. "Ain't done yet." Morning came gray and wet. The smell of gunpowder lingered, but the ranch still stood. Harlow's body lay near the well, half covered by rainwater. The surviving soldiers were gone. Cal helped bury the dead without a word. When it was done, he turned to Elias. "You'll have the law down on you by week's end." Elias winced as Tassa tightened the bandage on his arm. "Ain't the first time." Cal looked at the women, then back at him. "You can still turn 'em in. Say they force you." Elias stared at him. "You know I won't." Cal nodded slowly. "Figured." He spat into the dirt. "Then this is where we part ways." Elias didn't stop him. As Cal rode off into the wet morning, the ranch felt both emptier and cleaner. Days passed. The rain cleared and the sun returned, softer now, as if the land itself had drawn a deep breath. The women worked without being asked, mending fences, tending stock, planting small patches of corn behind the barn. Life began again, fragile but alive. One evening, Elias sat by the corral, watching Childa chase a runaway chicken, while Noki laughed from the porch. Tassa joined him, arms crossed. "You should rest," she said. "I rest when the day's done." She looked toward the hills. "Soldiers no come back?" "Not yet." She nodded. "Then peace for now." He studied her face, strong, proud, but weary. "You ever think about leaving? Heading west, maybe?" She shook her head. "Where go? Land hates us. White men hunt. Better stay where fire don't burn." He smiled faintly. "Ain't much of a home." "Still home." They sat in silence for a while. The sky turned from blue to violet. The world felt suspended, half-healed, half-haunted. Finally, Tassa spoke again. "Why you save us?" He thought for a long time before answering. "'Cause no one saved mine. Thought maybe it'd count for something." She tilted her head. "Does it?" He looked at the horizon. "Don't know, but I feel less empty." Later, he walked to the well where Harlow had fallen. The rain had washed away the blood. Only the churned mud remained. He dropped the captain's badge into the water, watching it sink. "Ain't no law worth killing mercy," he muttered. That night, the house glowed warm with firelight. Noki hummed while Childa braided her hair. Tassa sat by the window, sewing quietly. Elias, his arms still bandaged, leaned back in his chair, watching them. He realized the ranch no longer felt like a tomb. It breathed again, softly but alive. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of sage and rain. The plains stretched endless, silver under the moon. Elias spoke softly, half to himself, half to them. "Men like Harlow think the West theirs to tame. But it ain't. It belongs to whoever's still standing when the dust settles." Tassa looked up from her sewing. "We still stand." He smiled. "That we do." Silence fell again, gentle this time. The kind of silence that felt earned. When dawn came, the ranch glowed gold under clean light. Elias saddled his horse, ignoring the ache in his shoulder. Tassa met him by the gate. "You go?" she asked. "Just ride in the line. Make sure it's safe." She handed him his rifle. Then come back. He paused, met her eyes. I will. He rode out across the plains. The sun climbed behind him. The land spread wide and wild, the air sharp with promise. Somewhere behind him, the faint sound of laughter drifted through the wind. For the first time in years, he didn't ride away from something. He rode toward it. As the horizon swallowed him, a narrator's voice lingered like a whisper carried on the wind. Mercy's a harder weapon than any rifle. Out here, the West tests a man's soul more than his aim. Elias Boone didn't win nowhere that night, but maybe he found something rarer, a reason to live. The camera would linger on the ranch, Tassa tending the fire, Noki and Children corral, laughter mixing with the cry of the wind, then fade to the open plains, endless and alive. If this story moved you, the voice says softly, don't forget to subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances.